You know, ever since people found out that I've been using a myriad of fake emails to re-sign up for free Hulu 2-week trials, I've been known as somewhat of a troublemaker that plays outside the rules. So this same renegade philosophy can apply to your guitar playing. And today we're going to talk about my top 3 favorite kind of music theory tricks that you can go outside to make things just sound maybe a little more exciting, right? And then there's actually one kind of thing that I just realized why I like these that I'll talk about that ties it all together. But first we're going to talk about just different chords that might not go in a chord progression technically, but always hit the spot. All right. So the first one is going to be a minor 5 chord. All right. A lot of times what we're going to use in describing these kind of hacks and stuff are alterations of a chord that already exists in the diatonic major scale. So all that means is if we're in the key of G, right, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. All those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all those numbers become chords. So the 1 chord would be G major or G major 7. The 2 chord would be A minor or A minor 7. 3 chord, B minor or B minor 7. The 4 chord would be C major or C major 7. The 5 chord would be D7. The 6 chord would be E minor or E minor 7. The 7 chord would be F sharp, half diminished, and home. Okay, so that's why when you number chord progressions, like a common one would be a 1, 4, 5 in G. That would be G, C, D, G. But my first hack is going to be a minor 5 chord. So the 5 chord in any key shouldn't be minor. It should be major. It should be dominant 7, right? So like we said in G, that minor, or the 5 chord is a D major or a D7. And that has definitely a pull, right? That D7 will get you back to G. Kind of like they keep trying to pull my credit card information on Hulu, but it's never gonna work. I set my alarm. I have an internal alarm that knows when it's about to renew, and you're never gonna get me, guys. You're never gonna get me. But what we could do is we could make that 5 chord minor. All right. So by itself, as you may have heard, it might sound like you're kind of forcing a minor chord in there at first. It doesn't sound like bad, but it doesn't sound smooth. So one way to really get it to sound smooth is to use other chords in that key and then alter that 5 chord, okay? So example, let's do something in the key of G, and let's have a 2-part chord progression. So the A part won't have the 5 chord in it. We'll just have like a G to C to A minor to G. Okay, so if this is our first chord, we're still in the key. Nothing's changed. But then now we're gonna go minor 5. I'm gonna go E minor. See how that works? These chords are E minor 7, D minor, C, okay? So it's kind of cool because it kind of sets up that chord progression to go back to G. And now you could say, well, aren't you just using key of C chords because D is a minor chord? Well, that still resolves on G in a very major way. And then another thing that you do, you can go back and forth in between. So let's do that same chord progression, but instead of going G, C, A minor, let's go G, D major, A minor. All right, so G. And then let's do the same thing. And now listen to where that D hits in a minor 5 context. Kind of hear it. So it's kind of cool because there is a lot of room for like interplay in between those two things. Minor 5 is your first thing. So, you know, it doesn't have to be just in that. I think my favorite one actually on guitar is minor 5 in the key of C, okay? So for instance, what's the 5 chord in C? C, D, E, F, G, right? Now, G minor is a chord that you've probably been avoiding most of your life every time you see it on a chord chart. But this one right here, let's do G minor 11, and there's a reason that I think this works even better than a typical minor 5, is because right here's C major, where finger's got the 3rd fret on the low E string, pinky's got 3rd fret on the A string, middle finger 2 on the D string, open G, 1, G. Now if we switch to G minor 11 from here, you can keep your pointer finger on that C on the B string, right? So this kind of ties it together. So I think that's why this is my favorite one, because you can use this C on top to tie together so many chords in this key, right? Like a lot of very common chord progressions in the key of C would involve like an A minor and an F major 7 or something like that, C, A minor, F, get that. I think that sounds just really, really cool right there. So again, G minor 11, 3 on the E string, skip the A string, 3 and 3 on the D and G string, and then 1 on the B string. And then just play around with the different chords in that key. So, minor 5, the beauty of the minor 5. Just try it out. There's 5 chords in every song, just make it minor. And while you're doing that, get yourself a set of Elixir strings, because this video is sponsored by Elixir strings. In fact, I just got back to my old place, stay where I'm shooting this video. I have not touched this Martin D35 in months. Elixir strings are on it. Guess what? Perfectly in tune. Sounds amazing. The best strings you will ever get. If you haven't gotten... You must have seen some of these videos already. You must have seen me trying to get you to do it. I'm trying to help you people out with these Elixir strings. They're going to last longer, they're going to feel better, they're going to sound better, and you're going to save money over time because you're not going to have to replace your strings when the other uncoated ones wear out. Affiliate link in the description. Helps me out, helps the world out, helps yourself out if you get some Elixir strings. So check that out, and then get those minor 5 chords in your chord progressions, all right? Now the next thing that we're going to do is going to be a flat 7 major chord, but with a twist, which you might already be able to predict what this twist is. Now what that means, a flat 7 major chord, it means we take the 7th note in a key, and we don't change it, we add a new one to it, okay? So let's stick in the key of C, right? What's the 7th note in the key of C? We can count through it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Well, what's the flat 7 note would be a B flat, okay? So a flat 7 major chord would be a B flat major in the key of C, okay? So now the twist is that I always go one step further and make that a major 7 chord, all right? So we have this new chord that we can add to the other ones in the key of B flat, and this actually ties in with the minor 5 chord, which we're going to talk about probably near the end of this video, after my third of 3 chord theory hacks. But here's the chord right here. Here's B flat, major 7. 1 on the A string, 3 on the D string, 2 on the G string, 3 on the B string. Now just add this to any chord progression in the key of C, right? Let's go through the chords in the key of C real quick. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B flat major 7, B minor 7 flat 5, C. So when you do it as a chord scale, I think you can already hear there's some utility there, because it's really just that 7 chord with the root dropped, and that makes it that flat 7 major 7 chord, which is such a cool sound. And I think even just going from A minor 7, you see how that now kind of turns that 7 chord, which you've never used in your life anyway, that minor 7 flat 5 chord, into like a really cool kind of passing tone that sets you up for resolving elsewhere, right? Now again, we can start combining these. Like, what if we played a little chord progression, 1, 2, minor 5, flat 7. This is where you might be like, well, these chords seem familiar in maybe another key, which we're going to talk about in a second, because that's the resolution, foreshadowing to the resolution of the end of this video. But I want to talk about one more, kind of pretty common one that you'll run across, and that is a major 3 chord, okay? So let's go back to the key of G. G major is the 1 chord, A minor is the 2 chord, B minor is the 3 chord. But what if B major was the 3 chord, or specifically B7? This is another thing that happens a lot, especially because a lot of times this will lead you back to the relative minor of a key. And remember, the relative minor, if you don't know any of this stuff, check out my Patreon, because I go through all like the terms and stuff in a very beginner friendly way when I'm not trying to zoom through YouTube videos or try to keep it in that sweet spot of length. But the relative minor of a key is the 6th note, right? So E minor and G major sound great. If you want to take a G major chord progression, make it sound sad, just go to that relative minor, that E minor, and then just kind of ride that E. And the way to get back to this is use that dominant 7 chord, which usually is supposed to be a minor chord if we're staying in the key of G and coming home. But that's kind of like the dominant function of using this is what's called a secondary dominant in the key of G, just to get back to that relative minor chord, to throw you to the E minor. But again, here you go. Here's me signing up for that new free Hulu trial with Sean Daniel swagged out Master P 69420 at yahoo.com. That's me getting my free 2 weeks. We're not going to use it to get back to the 6th chord. We're just going to use it just as this new chord, like maybe after the G. We're going to go to the C chord. So this would be a 1, 3 major, dominant 7, regular 4 chord, 5 chord, right? Minor 5 to 7, 5. Okay, now the one thing that I've realized, where it's like, okay, well, what am I doing? Am I just memorizing different kind of tips and tricks? What is it about my taste that makes me like these things? And I think there's actually maybe a simpler way to even say that. I think that in my own playing, and it's always a good thing to know all the rules so you can diagnose your own playing and find out what you like in certain songs, what they have in common, and then integrate them more into your playing. I think that's a really important thing that everybody should do. But what I figured out is like, all right, I actually don't like cheating and using a flat 7 major chord or a minor 5 chord so much as I like switching between 2 keys at the same time in the same song, right? So what I mean by that, let's take parallel keys. Let's take the key of C, and my favorite chord in any key is the 4 chord as a major 7 chord. So it's the 4 chord in the key of C, C, D, E, F. Let's take the key of C and the key of F, all right? I'm always heavy on that 4 chord stuff and stuff that I like to listen to and stuff that I like to play. So it's like, well, what if I just take that 4 chord and think of it as its own key, and then just kind of combine all the chords from these 2 keys and pull them together? What we have is, if we have the C major chords, we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B, half diminished, and C. In the key of F, we have F major as the 1 chord, G minor as the 2 chord. You might know where this is going. A minor as the 3 chord, B flat major as the 4 chord. Remember, we've seen a lot of these chords before, that G minor and that B flat major. C, or C7, as the 5 chord, D minor as the 6 chord, E half diminished as the 7 chord back to 1. So it's like, if I'm thinking of maybe just taking each of these keys and taking all the chords that populate them and then just mashing them together, then I actually get cool stuff. Like, that's where that G minor being the 2 chord in the key of F, or G major being the 5 chord in the key of C, if I'm thinking in 2 keys at the same time, essentially, then that opens up that G minor to get me back to any of the C major chords. Same thing, like, what's the 4 chord in the key of F? 1, 2, 3, 4. B flat, major 7. Well, like I said, that's the flat 7 major chord in the key of C. So what I think is probably even more valuable, like, at first it's just good to memorize a few things. Like, maybe I want to try a minor 5 chord in this song, or I want to try to see what that flat 7 major sounds like. Take 2 keys that, are close to each other. C and F are very close to each other. It's really just having a B flat and kind of letting that ride instead of a B, or just adding a B flat to a B. But take 2 chord groups and then maybe just start combining them and then just getting experimental. You know what I mean? But it's only going to work if you have extra strings on it. So that's my advice. Take 2 chord progressions or 2 chord groups that you like to use, and then maybe just start picking and choosing chords from each of them, and then try and diagnose why you like the sound of that. And then I think you're going to be a way better player. So thank you to Elixir Strings for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys for watching it. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comments section, Instagram, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon.